Television is not the truth. Television is a goddamn amusement park. Television is a circus, a carnival, a traveling troupe of acrobats, storytellers, dancers, singers, jugglers, sideshow freaks, lion tamers, and football players. We're in the boredom-killing business. So turn off your television sets. Turn them off now. Turn them off right now. Turn them off and leave them off. Turn them off right in the middle of the sentence I'm speaking to you now. Turn them off.
Stop them. An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army.
Welcome to another episode of Eradicating Programmed Ignorance, the Town Crier. Brought to you by the Liberty Beacon Project. And my name is Roger Landry. I am your host, and I am the founder of the Liberty Beacon Project. And today, we're going to have a discussion because we can. And you're going to understand exactly why I say that when I tell you what the title of the article that I wrote that will be the basis for today's show. And that is True Freedom of Speech. Hey, do you remember that? And no, I'm not being facetious. So let's talk about our ability to talk about true freedom of speech. Do you remember that? This unalienable right as put forth in the First Amendment to the Constitution guarantees us expression of information, ideas, and opinions, free of government restrictions or reprisals based on content. In an ideal world, this may be our greatest tool to hold our government in check. However, in reality, does it exist in its true form or at all anymore? Most of us who own, run, or visit websites and social media of the liberty persuasion have seen and heard the horror stories pertaining to people being put on government watch lists, being harassed, losing jobs, and generally being ostracized because they dare to voice dissent concerning actions, restrictions, or mandates imposed by our government. As a matter of fact, if you're listening to this, you are by your nature, your very nature, probably already on some watch list somewhere. At this point in this article that I wrote, I insert one of my memes, and this is titled, "In a Republic, when it becomes seditious to speak the words or practice the very concepts our founding fathers fought and died to bequeath to us, then tyranny is no longer a possibility. It's a guarantee." And why do I say that? Well, let's continue. I'm aware of a documented case of a young woman being put on such a watch list because she was an advocate for Ron Paul's 2008 election bid. Yeah, 11 years ago. And this tyranny has only progressed since then. Would someone please care to explain to me how this makes this fine, patriotic young woman a threat to this country? It in fact does not. What it does make her is an informed and concerned citizen exercising her right to assembly and free speech. This is a travesty. The only reason this type of situation exists at all is because entrenched ruling structure is fearful of losing their grip on power via an awakening population, which is something they're getting whether they like it or not. How many of you remember the Bundy Ranch fiasco, where you had to be penned up in a corral in order to speak your mind? Your unalienable right to free speech in free speech zones. Hold on a minute. Free speech zones? Where is that in the Constitution? But it doesn't stop there, as many campuses and increasingly the number of public events also have restrictive areas called, guess what? Free speech zones. So if you're going to be corralled up and you can only speak freely within a specific area, which is usually totally ignored by anything but, I don't know, the type of press that the Liberty Beacon Project represents, independent media, wouldn't you say that's a pretty good way to usurp our First Amendment rights? Okay. You need to understand that if a truly independent person of morals and character who by their beliefs threatens a radical shift in the way government does business is elected to high office, especially the presidency in this country. Gee, imagine that. Then all hell could break loose. There would be an instantaneous upset in the balance of corrupt power that has existed for so long. Corruption, cronyism, favoritism, and backroom politics in general would suffer a huge focus, scrutiny, and exposure. Having to deal strictly above board in a truly transparent fashion would leave a considerable number of the so-called ruling elite out on their butts, or at a minimum in serious doubt as to how to exercise their stolen power from we the people. So, for those who rule from the shadows, this must not be allowed to happen. So how do you prevent it? How do we prevent the rise of these citizen politicians that feel they have the right to speak freely against things being perpetrated against the American people or we the people? How do these elites prevent this from happening? Let's break it down. First step, disinformation and misinformation. Buy up all the mainstream media and blanket the American public with pleasant things that are soft, fuzzy, fun, and entertaining. And infuse this with your message to the point where we all think and feel that this is the way it's supposed to be or the way it should be. Or blanket the masses with messages of fear and foreboding while promising that you, the government, will do whatever is necessary, including tyranny or treason, to keep we the people safe and secure from our intentionally manufactured fears. Step number 2, corruption, cronyism, and favoritism. Buy your candidates, coddle, pamper, and indoctrinate them, but most of all, addict them to the power, fame, and importance. In essence, make them your faithful lapdogs. If this is not sufficient, find something or facilitate it to be used as leverage over them. Blackmail. Ensure that all the mechanisms of money necessary to buy, bribe, or extort any possible adversaries be made available. Step number 3, and this is the kicker. Intimidation. If you realize that any person or persons of scruples, values, compassion, and independent thought may upset your apple cart by speaking the truth, reality, call them a nut, someone on the fringe, an eccentric, unfit to be listened to, or, if the case may be, govern, intimidate a popular, conscientious leader or candidate followers like you or I through the venues such as government watch lists. Make it so that getting a loan, a job, or even government assistance is difficult, if not outright impossible. This has the result, in a vast majority of cases, of causing people to back off, to disassociate themselves from a cause or a situation that is screwing with their lives or their comfort zones. The few that protest louder, pen them up in obscure, unconstitutional free speech zones. Label them as fanatics, or, if these fail, brand them as malcontents that are harmful to society and to your comfortable way of life, domestic terrorists, and lock them away for life. Or assassinate them, which the government, via executive order, has the ability to do. Or, in essence, by unconstitutional laws or outright treason, shut down their freedom of speech. A very wise man, Voltaire, said, "I may disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it." What follows is a quote that foretells the disastrous state of our freedom of speech in this country today. This is reality, all right? We are all aware of the illegal activity being perpetrated on we the people. To deny or permanently silence our inalienable rights to herald the truth. And this only serves to strengthen those who would perpetrate harm on us. So what is this quote? It's actually a dual quote. The first one, or the first half, when in a republic, the unalienable rights and freedoms of the true governors, the people, are usurped. And this usurpation is not railed against en masse by said governors. The end result can only be overwhelming tyranny and subjugation. That's a quote by Roger Landry, TLB. And I will follow that up with a second quote. For the saddest epitaph which can be carved in memory of a vanished freedom is that it was lost because its possessors failed to stretch forth a saving hand while there was still time. George Sutherland. Both of these quotes we are guilty of. You have heard me say over and over and over again, if you would like to find out who is responsible for the sad state of affairs when it comes to unalienable rights of we the people, we only need look in the mirror. Every bit of tyranny that has been forced on we the people can be undone by we the people, if we so choose, if we care enough to choose. Let me read these two quotes again. The first one by myself. When in a republic, the unalienable rights and freedoms of the true governors, the people, are usurped, and these usurpations are not rallied against in mass by said governors, the end result can only be overwhelming tyranny and subjugation. Followed up by the saddest epitaph which can be carved in memory of a vanished freedom is that it was lost because the possessors failed to stretch forth a saving hand while there was still time. George Sutherland. I am 3 generations old enough. A lot of you are rolling your eyeballs into the back of your head, but it's the truth. That's perspective. I am 3 generations old. I'll be 65 years old in August and have a pretty good recollection of what freedom of speech is or is supposed to be from that perspective and by our Constitution. Can those graduating from high school or college today say the same thing? Hadn't been brought up in a system of perpetuated propaganda and veiled tyranny? Is their concept or understanding of this right the same as yours and mine? Do they feel that the privilege granted by a tyrannical government that has supplanted this right is in fact what our founders bequeathed to us? Because I have told you on several occasions and published an article about a 10-year-old young girl who brought homework home for her mother to help her with, in which it stated that our unalienable rights were in fact, and the word unalienable never appeared in the homework. I am using that because that's what they are. Her homework stated our inalienable rights were in fact privileges granted by a benevolent government. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? The answers to these questions scream volumes. We, the people, are facing peril when we can no longer speak freely. And anybody who thinks that because Trump is in office, all of that has changed, it hasn't. It took 3 generations to put us here. If you think that we're going to move off center, this being center right now, in a matter of 2.5 years, you're ignorant. It's never going to happen. Now more than ever in our history do we need men and women with scruples, values, compassion, and intelligence speaking their mind and in the driver's seat. This bus, America, is headed for a cliff, and none of the morons who pretend to represent us in Congress can drive. Get pissed, get motivated, get enthusiastic, but get the word out while you still have the freedom to get the word out. And as usual, I always finish my articles up with another meme and some links. There are links here, and these links are to articles that go back 4, 5, 6 years. This is not something new. And by President Trump getting elected, it did not all go away. As a matter of fact, changing the establishment, as I just said, will never happen overnight. Only we can do that, we the people. So let me get through this last meme that finishes off this article. When it is said the true value of a man is his word, but he loses the ability to speak that word, what we in theory have is the intentional devaluation of that man. It would seem that those who would control our government through their tyrannical actions have intentionally devalued more than just our dollar. Speak out, live free. So let's take this all the way back to where we started. True freedom of speech. Do you remember that? Now, I'm going to say that a majority of, and I wouldn't say all because there were idiots when I was a kid, just as there are idiots today. There are those of ignorance, which means they simply lack the knowledge. And there are those of stupidity, meaning even if they have the knowledge, they can't come to the proper decisions or the proper evaluations. I would tell you that most people of my generation, the baby boomer generation, have an idea what freedom of speech was. We saw the uprising against the Vietnam War. We saw it on campuses across the country. Nobody shoved them in pens where they couldn't talk. As a matter of fact, they exercised that right up, all the way up, and to the point where shots were fired at Kent State against protesters and several were killed. And this was done in defense of those people firing the guns. Do I agree with it? No. But I wasn't there holding that gun, and it wasn't my life at risk. The point here is freedom of speech was a whole different animal in the 50s, 60s, and 70s than it is since the turn of the century. And if you don't believe that, if you don't think that, it is because of your Common Core ignorance and the communist and socialist professors who teach you in college. So if this article has upset you, if this article has made you sweat profusely, find the puppy room. Find the Play-Doh room where you can be quiet and you can be coddled for an hour or so as you come down from the anger I have driven you into. But God knows, don't you dare go out in public and voice your opinion, right? Find yourself a free speech zone. Then you can speak freely. My name is Roger Landry. This is the Liberty Beacon Project, and you are listening to Eradicating Program Ignorance, the Town Crier. Y'all have a really good day, and thank you.